All right, today we're diving into a real historical mystery. We're uncovering a faith that was intentionally hidden, a secret society that was bound by oaths and rituals, and it thrived on the misty, dangerous borders of the Roman Empire. Imagine this. For centuries, Roman soldiers stationed thousands of miles from home were whispering the name of a mysterious god in secret underground temples. And no, this wasn't Jupiter or Mars, not the usual suspects. This was someone else entirely. So who was he? So how do we know any of this? Well, our whole deep dive today is based on a fascinating research report that pieces together all these archaeological and historical clues, really uncovering the secrets of this religion along what we now call Germany. Okay, so first things first, the big question, who exactly was this god that commanded so much loyalty? The faith is called Mithraism. Now, it was what historians call a mystery religion. That means its deepest teachings and rituals were only revealed to those who were initiated. You see, it wasn't a faith you were born into, it was a club you had to choose to join. And this religion had a really dramatic arc. I mean, it just appears in the 1st century, then it explodes in popularity for the next 200 years, but then, almost as quickly as it showed up, it vanishes by the 4th century. It was like a bright flame that burned out really, really fast. You know, what's so interesting is that Mithraism was this incredible cocktail of different beliefs. It wasn't purely Roman at all. It actually traces its roots way back to the Persian god Mithra, but it was all blended together with Greek philosophy, Babylonian astrology, and the crucial part, it was all packaged with a kind of structure and discipline that would have felt incredibly familiar to a Roman soldier. And the name his followers gave him, it was epic. Deus Sol Invictus Mithros, the unconquered sun god. I mean, for men living in a pretty violent and uncertain world, the whole idea of an invincible, unconquered god, that was incredibly appealing. But of course, a god is nothing without followers, so let's shift gears and look at who exactly was joining this secret brotherhood. You have to wonder, right? What kind of person was drawn to these hidden rituals, to a faith that was practiced in darkness and secrecy, completely away from the public eye? Well, this cult was built on a very specific set of rules. First off, it was for men only. To get in, you had to go through these secret, pretty challenging trials. And once you were in, there was this rigid 7-level hierarchy you had to climb. Above all, it demanded absolute loyalty. The core idea, the foundation of it all, was this powerful bond of brotherhood. The research report we're drawing from puts it perfectly. It says it was a closed brotherhood organization that required secrecy and loyalty. So the takeaway here is that this structure created an incredibly intense bond between its members, a lot like a tight-knit military unit. And that's why it hit home so hard with soldiers. I mean, just picture it. You're stationed on the chaotic, dangerous edge of the known world. Mithraism offered you everything your life was missing: a clear sense of order, a higher purpose, and maybe most importantly, an unbreakable bond with the guys standing right next to you. This all sounds amazing, but you might be thinking, how do we actually know any of this stuff? Well, the evidence is literally buried in the ground, especially along that old Roman frontier. So we need to zoom in on a specific place. It's called the Limes Germanicus. This was the heavily fortified border in Germany that separated the Roman Empire from what they saw as barbarian tribes. This long line of forts and watchtowers, this was the absolute heartland of the Mithras cult. And it's here that archaeologists have been finding the cult's temples. They're called a Mithraeum. Now, these weren't grand public cathedrals. Nope. They were small, intimate spaces, often built underground or inside other buildings, all designed to look like a cave. It just reinforces that whole vibe of secrecy and mystery. So, how many of these temples are we talking about? A dozen? 50? Not even close. We're talking hundreds. Hundreds of these secret temples have been discovered dotting that former Roman border. And that tells us something really important. This wasn't some fringe belief. It was widespread and deeply, deeply important to these men. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The cult's influence didn't just stop with the military. Even though we call it a soldier's religion, all sorts of artifacts tell us that merchants, bureaucrats, and even some slaves were initiated into the brotherhood. It seems that appeal of order and belonging was pretty universal. Okay, so if this cult was so popular and so powerful, where did it go? Why aren't there Mithraic temples in our cities today? What happened? The answer really lies in the rise of a competing faith, Christianity. And when you put them side by side, they were fundamentally different. Mithraism was exclusive and secret. Christianity was inclusive and public. One appealed to a very specific group, while the other's message had this incredibly broad appeal across all classes and genders. And in the end, there was really only room for one dominant religion in the Roman Empire. As Christianity grew, eventually getting official state backing in the 4th century, the secret cult that thrived in the shadows, well, it just couldn't compete. Its light faded, and its temples were abandoned and forgotten. And that just leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? The story of Mithras, a faith that was central to the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, was almost completely lost to time. It really makes you wonder, how many other beliefs, other stories, other gods are still buried out there, waiting to be rediscovered, just beneath our feet?